talking about this, but I want to refer to it briefly, just because there's been so much hoopla about the end of the world, which was supposed to happen last night at 6 p.m. And I woke up this morning and I woke up to the sounds of the birds and, the beautiful sunlight and all these things. And, I immediately went to my computer to just kind of see what the world had to say about May 22nd today. Since, 21st around 6 o'clock, the things were supposed to end. So I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I just want to touch upon it real quick and we'll move on and we'll talk about what I had intended to talk about. But regarding the end times, I don't really have too much of my own insight, and so I try to rely strictly on what Jesus has to say about the end times. And believe it or not, this subject about when the world is going to end has been popular even before, when Jesus was around. It's not something that's happening recently, that nowadays people are like all of a sudden more aware, more interested about when the end of the world is going to happen, and movies like Armageddon and 2012 and these things are coming out and people are more interested. It's always been like that. People have always been interested about it. Okay? One particular chapter that deals about this, and Jesus actually talks directly with his disciples, is in Matthew 24. And you'll notice that this entire chapter actually talks about the end times, okay, when the end of the world that the disciples are asking. So notice in verse 1, Jesus left the temple and was walking away when his disciple came up to him to call his attention to its buildings, to the temple buildings. Do you see all these things, he asked. Jesus asked them. Truly I tell you, not one stone here will be left on another. Everyone will be thrown down. Jesus is talking about the temple of Jerusalem, how the old laws and those things will be thrown down to be removed. And as Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. Okay, now notice, it's even the select 12, the elite, okay, the people that are supposed to be Jesus' right-hand people. They come to Jesus and they're privately asking Jesus, Jesus, you're supposed to be the Son of God, so we have a question that we've been dying to ask you. This is one thing that we've always wanted to know. Tell us, they said, when will this happen, and what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age? See, even the disciples are wondering, when is the end going to happen? And here's the answer that Jesus gives throughout the chapter. Watch that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, claiming I am the Messiah, and will deceive many. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. One of the things that Harold Camping, the pastor that predicted this end of the world, he says that this passage, these rumors of wars and wars, are an indication that the end of the world is here. Okay, that it says in the Bible that when the wars are happening, that there's rumors of wars. That's you guys should beware, because that means that the end of the world is coming. But what does Jesus say? You will hear of these things, and there will be rumors that wars are going to take place, but don't be alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nations will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places, but all these are beginning of birth pains. So one thing that we need to know is, as we see these things and as we see what Jesus is talking about, the end time that's coming close, we can tell by what's going around in the world that it's getting there. It may not be yesterday, but it is getting there. We are in a place where there is the beginning of the birth pains that Jesus is talking about. Because of this increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. I tend to listen to this and try to think that Jesus is talking about that when the end is coming closer will be when everybody on earth, all the people groups, all the nations, all the people groups have had a chance to hear about who Jesus is. Okay? It's not that when everybody becomes a Christian, but everyone has a chance to hear about who Christ is. Now, many people ask, then what about all those people that live in remote places and they die without hearing Jesus? And my only answer is, when you look at the entire history of the Bible and you look at about the nature of God, it says very clearly that God is a very just and fair God. So I really don't know what happens to people that don't have a chance to hear about who Jesus is and they die. But what is to be sure is that when we go to heaven, God is a fair and just God, and that He will deal with them accordingly. Okay? And then He goes on. Immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will darken, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. In the interview of Harold Camping on CNN, this man, he's 82, 89, something like that. He's a very old man. He's been preaching for a very long time. He said this. He said, on May 21st, Saturday, beginning 6 p.m., well, actually, all day, he said he's going to be watching the news. Because all day, he wants to see how different countries in the world, where all the different earthquakes and famines are going to happen and the things that he predicted. He said starting Saturday, all day, he's going to sit in front of the TV and he's going to watch the news all day because he's expecting all these reports of earthquakes and famines and things that are going to be on TV. You know what Jesus says right here? When the day comes, you're not going to have to sit in front of the TV to see if the earthquakes are happening. You'll know, because what does he say? The sun, on a beautiful sunny day like this, the sky is going to rip open, the sun's going to stop shining, the moon's going to stop. It's going to be clear to everybody. You don't even have to do anything. The moment that God is coming back, it'll be very clear for you. You don't have to go to CNN to find out if the earth is going to end. Okay, it's going to be very clear. Right? Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then all the peoples of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with great power and glory. But about that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. Okay, now look. Every single time I hear somebody predict the end of the world, and I read this verse, I'm like, wow, that person has some amazing ego or self-esteem about who they are. Because Jesus says not even the angels, not even Jesus himself know, but these people can come and they say, I know. I know more than the angels in the heavens. You see, we're missing the point, right? No one knows. Not even Jesus knew. It's only the Father knows when the end is there. And it is the days, and Jesus gives an example. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. Right? Remember the flood? No one knew. No one was expecting it. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking merrily and giving in marriage up to the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. That is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. 2 men will be in the field. One will be taken and the other one left. 2 women will be grinding at the handmill. One will be taken and the other left. And then Jesus goes on to say, therefore, keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. So if anything, when you hear these predictions of the end world, about the apocalypse, one thing that it should do is that you should be reminded about what if this was the last day. If anything, when these people come up and they proclaim that yesterday was supposed to be the end of the world, what it should do is to remind us, how are we living our life that if in fact yesterday was the last day that we would be here on earth, that we would be ready to go back to Christ? Because Jesus says, keep watch, and this word keep watch means be active. Don't be caught off guard. Don't be lazy. Don't be procrastinating and leaving everything to the last minute, because you don't know when the end times are coming. You have to live as if each and every single day is the last. Right? Keep watch. So you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him. And then he goes on to describe, who is then the faithful and wise servant? And he answers the question by saying, it will be good for that servant whose master finds him doing so when he returns. Okay? Who is the person that is ready? Person that is faithful each and every single day, who lives this day as if each and every single day is the last day on earth. So that's all I'm going to say about the end times, okay? You can read into it. The next prediction is, of course, the famous Mayan calendar, right? December 2012 is supposed to be the next end time. You know what? If anything, I think these are good reminders for us. Really to see if we are living each and every single moment as if Jesus says. Jesus says, don't miss the point. Don't get so worked up about when exactly is the day, but rather think more about being faithful each and every single day of your life. Don't wait till the last minute to say, oh God, I want to live for you. Make sure, because no one knows. No one knows. And Jesus makes fun of his disciples who are like, wait, if they knew, wouldn't everybody be prepared? If people knew that tomorrow was going to be the end of the times, wouldn't everyone do something right? That's just how it is with life. We don't know, and so we need to live each day being prepared. Okay, so you can go ahead and go home if you like to read the chapter, Matthew 24, in detail if you like to get some more information, but that's all I will say about that. For this week, we find that the disciples have had a heck of a day. Okay, remember last week when we were talking about disciples that get on. So Jesus has been teaching on this boat all day, right? And he's teaching and teaching and teaching. At the end of the day, when it gets dark, he says to the disciples, hey guys, let's go to the other side. And so Jesus is on this boat, and just as he was, all these things, no accommodations, they see the sky looks fine, and they start going on this boat, and what happens? They're out in the middle of this lake, and all of a sudden this huge storm comes, and there's water everywhere, they're about to drown, and what's Jesus doing? He's just chilling and sleeping on a cushion. Okay, and so the disciples go up to Jesus, and they're like, Jesus, what are you doing? We're going to die. This wind, this wave, the storm came out of nowhere. We're going to die. And Jesus doesn't do anything else. He just gets up. He looks at the wind and the wave as if I'm looking at my son who's doing something he's not supposed to do. And he says, be quiet. Peace. And what happens? Just like that. It's not like immediately the sun starts coming out. There's birds, butterflies flying everywhere, and everything's calm. And the disciples are like, what the heck is going on? They're scared. It says in Mark that they're terrified. Okay? Now look what happens. As soon as they get off the boat and get to the other side, what's waiting there for him? There's a demon-possessed man that they're so strong that you can't even bind him with the chains, that lives in the tombs, in the graveyards, running out to the disciples. The disciples are having a heck of a day. Ever had one of those days you just feel like it never ends? Right? For them, it's like, what? And remember, I told you last week, they're teenagers. They're already freaking out. They just saw an amazing thing, and now there's this demon-possessed guy. Just picture this, okay? The way that Mark describes that he lives in the graveyard, okay, as if that's not creepy enough. He lives in the graveyard. He's so violent that people try to tie him down with these chains, but what does he say? The chains aren't strong enough, so he's breaking these chains, and so he has these remnants of chains all over his body. And what else does he say? That he screams in the middle of the night, and then not only does he scream, but he takes rocks and he cuts himself. So here's this guy, really, really strong, chains everywhere, blood dripping down, he's got cuts, and he's running to the disciples. Ah! The disciples are like, what in the world is going on? They're having a heck of a day. And then things start to get worse. So look, the last time I felt like my life was in danger, you know what I'm doing? In my mind, I used to play this over and over again as a kid. You know, when I used to go to sleep as a 5-6-year-old, I used to think about this all the time. I used to think, I wish I had, I wish I was a taekwondo master with the body of He-Man and the weapons of G.I. Joes, right? And I used to think about this because why? If I was ever attacked by an evil person, I would have all the skills and I would be this courageous person that as soon as somebody comes, I'd be like, wah, wah, and do my thing and it'll be over, okay? The last time I was in a life-threatening situation, okay, guess what happened? I was with a group of 3 other guys, and there was these, we were in a place that was very shady, to say the least, and it was a life-threatening situation. I saw these group of people really drunk and just out of their mind. They were walking towards us. Guess what? In my mind, I'm thinking I'm going to be the first one standing ready and be like, I'm going to protect everybody. Guess what happened? I'm like falling backwards like this. These disciples, teenage boys, just witnessed this demon-possessed guy running towards them. So their life isn't getting any better, okay? Can you imagine what they're thinking? If I'm them, I'm like grabbing my fish hooks, my fish poles, and sticks. As soon as they come, I'm going to whack him across the head, right? What happens? He comes and he falls on the knees of Christ and he says, don't torture me. The disciples are like, what? And then Jesus looks at this man and he says, hey, evil spirit, leave. And then he has a conversation with the evil spirit. And it's not just one evil spirit. He says, my name is Legion. Because it's not one, but there's many of us. What? And then it keeps getting worse. Because God says, hey, leave. And they're like, please don't make me leave. Please don't make me leave. And the legion's like, okay, you see those group of pigs? Let me go into the group of pigs. Do you see how ridiculous this is? If you're the disciples, you're like watching all of this happen. You're like, what the heck is going, what? And then Jesus is like, yes, go into the pigs. And what happens? There's all these pigs, 2,000 pigs, they said, and then all of a sudden, every single one of them runs to the lake and they drown. I think we miss the ridiculousness of Scripture sometimes because we're like, it's the Bible, it's supposed to be serious. You're watching a movie and you're like, what? What is, and all the pigs drown. 2,000, it's not like 2,000 pigs. They all